You're listening to TGI Sports Talk with your host, Keith Angle, on Northeast Streaming Sports.
Good morning, guys. Keith Angle for TGI Sports Talk right here on Northeast Streaming Sports Network, Zodiac TV. Welcome to the Zodiac TV viewers today. And we're on YouTube live on TGI Sports Talk and Northeast Streaming Sports. We're also all over the podcast world, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Pandora, all the ones you can think of. We're there. If you can't get to a computer, we're waiting on our guest today, Barry Lyons, former catcher for the New York Mets, member of the 1986 World Champions. And Barry had an interesting career. I'm making sure Barry doesn't have any problems because I don't see him in the room yet, but hopefully he will be here shortly. Let's see if I can get to your guys' comments here. See who's here. Good morning, Dave Guyette. I knew I'd find you there. Good morning. Anyway, another beautiful hot day here in East Greenbush, New York. I want to quickly thank my guests, my previous guests. Last week we had no guests, but leading up to that, while we had problems with the TGI Sports Talk page and Facebook, we were still broadcasting, and I was able to reshare the interviews that we did with Daryl Knowles, with Mike Keith, with Denny McLean. Great interviews, great response to those interviews. I thank all of you for those, for watching. And again, they went well, and we're going to continue to bring you plenty of those guests. Today's guest, as I said, will be Barry Lyons. Barry played with the Mets from 86 until, I want to say 90. Backed up the great Gary Carter, was part of the 1986 World Championship team, and part of some great Mets teams throughout the 80s. We'll talk a little bit about that and why they may not have won more championships than they did. And Barry, is also very instrumental in bringing back minor league baseball to Biloxi, Mississippi. We all know the struggles minor league baseball is having with contraction of 40-ish teams this year. And Barry had worked very hard to get a team in Biloxi, and he's got it would seem, at least from chatting with him briefly, that he's got a passion for minor league baseball. So we'll be talking about that as well. And with that, we will bring in Mr. Barry Lyons. Good morning, Barry. I am not hearing you. You might be on mute. Maybe I can unmute you. No. I think your sound's muted on your end, I think, Barry. I still have no sound. Oh. I think. Hold on. Try now. Somehow your mic keeps muting here in the stream here. Don't, hang on 1 second. Don't touch anything. Thought I could unmute you and I can't. And let me take you out, put you back in. Yeah, I still show you muted on my end, Barry. The wonders of live broadcasting. I may have to read lips today. I'm not very good at it, but do you have my sound, Dave Guyette, by the way? I'm looking at some comments in the room here, Barry. I just want to make sure that he has my sound. Yeah, okay. Let's see. I can't unmute the guests because they chose to mute themselves. So look at your little picture down below the screen, Barry, where you're kind of show next to me. See a little microphone you can unmute there? Apparently I can't override it when you've muted yourself. Yeah, they can hear me, so we're good except for you. Why don't you pop out, Barry, and pop back in? Just see what happens. And make sure you don't hit that mute button. So Barry will be right back again. Barry, instrumental in bringing minor league baseball back to Biloxi, Mississippi, his hometown. So we'll talk about that. They've been a very successful AA franchise for the Milwaukee Brewers. We're going to talk about his Mets career as well. And yeah, if this doesn't work, we'll have him call in if it doesn't work. Hopefully it does. I think there was just maybe a little technical difficulty on Barry's end. He's back. Let's hope we do not mute. Don't mute, Barry. Let's see what I can do. Gosh, you're still chosen to be muted, though. You don't see anything. Do you see the little box with where you and I are below the main screen? Can you see the little microphone there? It says you're muted. Oh, interesting. Well, this is a new problem, a new technical department. Unfortunately, I am the IT department on this show as well. One thing we can do, Barry, it's not optimal, but you can call my number and I can answer, and we can do it via phone. Let's try that. And if there's a delay, I'll just take you out of the room and we'll do just the audio. Sorry, guys. Every once in a while, these things happen. Can you hear me, Barry?
I've heard you all along. Can you hear me?
I can, and it looks like, see if I can turn the volume up here a little bit. I think we're in pretty good shape. Be careful. We may get some reverb on your end. So that sounds better. Can you still hear me?
Yes, I hear you.
Okay.
I hear you fine. And on my computer, it says you're in the show. Everyone can see and hear you.
That's very weird. I'll have to check with StreamYard. Sorry for that. You know, we get these technical difficulties every once in a while. You do some live broadcasts, so I'm sure you understand it does happen, right? So let me again welcome you to the show. I'm glad you could join me today. I have to tell you, in doing some research, I was really hoping you had the beard now. You got one of my favorite beards of all the people I check out. I love your beard. As somebody who can't grow one.
Well, it's something that just started innocently when I had knee replacement surgery back in November, and then it got infected. So I spent about 5 days in the hospital, and that's where it began. And after a week or so, I began to try to clean up and was going to shave. And my wife said, leave it. And so I left it and trimmed it out, and my granddaughters call me Santa Claus. But other than that, it's all good.
It's funny, as I was looking in, not stalking Barry Lyons, I promise, but you know, as I look at pictures that you had up through the years, I'm like, man, he looks so good in the beard. He's the best beard I've ever seen. I love it. Hope he has it now. So there's nothing to do with our conversation today, but this is what happens with my ADD issues, I think. So we're going to jump around a bit, Barry. You know, again, I talked about your career with the Mets and you're being instrumental in getting baseball back to Biloxi, and they're doing very well, obviously, or have done very well since 2015. Wish I could stop that feedback, but well, we'll give it a go here. As long as you're not getting it, we should be okay. Talk to us about, so when you were growing up in Biloxi and playing ball, on a very good ball player. I mean, you were drafted a couple times. You'd gone to Delta State, actually, where you were really good. I think you were an All-American ball player there. Did you feel like you had major league potential?
Well, it was a dream that I had and a hope that I had from a very young age. I was the youngest of four boys. So my three older brothers were great role models, and great athletes, good students, and good people, and well respected in the community, as were my parents. But I just love baseball. I played football up and through high school, but baseball was always what I was most passionate about, and the game that I loved the most, and the game that I wanted to be a big league ball player. That was my dream from a young age, and by the grace of God and so many wonderful things that happened along the way, I was able to fulfill that dream.
Oh, you were part of a lot of great moments. When you first got drafted, you were drafted by the Tigers originally. What caused you not to sign there and stay in school?
Well, I was drafted in the 25th round by the Tigers, and after my junior season in college. And my junior year, I ended up getting hurt, missing about a month of the season. I suffered a fractured hammock bone in my left hand. And our team, we had just a ton of rainouts that year. Our team didn't do as well as I would hope that we would. And various factors came into it. And then the bonus money that was offered, the whopping $1,000.
Yikes.
Did not entice me to sign. But no, I wanted to go back and get it right my senior year. As much as I wanted to play professional baseball, I believe that one more year at Delta State would be the best thing for me at that time, and certainly it proved out to be.
So when you do get drafted by the Mets, I mean, you're from the South. I mean, did you have a preference of a place you would play in the major leagues before you got drafted by the Mets?
No, I really did. I was just hoping to get drafted higher than I did as a junior, which I did by 10 rounds. And the first thing that popped into my head when I was drafted by the New York Mets was that their Double-A franchise was in Mississippi, in our state capital of Jackson, Mississippi.
Yeah.
So that was an exciting thought that came into my mind right away, that, in the minor leagues on the way up, I would have a chance to play in my home state. So that was certainly enticing. But being in New York as an athlete, there's no greater place to be on stage, if you will. New York City and the bright lights of New York City.
Sure.
And at the time, the Mets organization was on the rise. It had gone through some very difficult years in the late 70s and early 80s, but I was thankful to be drafted in 1982. Same draft as Doc Gooden and Roger McDowell, to name a couple of guys.
Pretty good names.
Draft class.
Yeah.
And it was the beginning of a great journey with the Mets organization.
So as you're coming up through the minors, and you mentioned Jackson, your last couple of years in the minor leagues in what do I want to say? In Lynchburg and Jackson, you had really good seasons. I mean, did you see the Mets? Did you know or have an inkling how good this team was going to be once all these players matured?
Well, I got to be a part of spring training and instructional league 2 years as well, with a lot of talented players. And when you've got guys like Darryl Strawberry in the organization, and then you trade for veterans like Keith Hernandez and Gary Carter, and you have Ray Knight in place there, and just the young talent was extraordinary. I mean, when you go down the list of players that came up through that organization in that 3 to 5 year period, I don't know that any other organization has ever matched that type of talent coming in at the same time. But in the early to mid 80s, the Mets organization was by far the best minor league organization, evident by the championships won and the awards that the minor league development staff won, and certainly the scouting department deserves a lot of credit for that as well. But the wealth of talent in the organization at every level was mind-blowing. And to be a part of that at that time for this organization was a dream come true, and was certainly something that I really cherished.
Now, I don't think you got a chance to play for Davey Johnson in the minor leagues, but who were the managers that influenced you and some of this other great talent and made them what they were when they hit the major league level?
A couple of key managers during that time was Sam Palazzo, who ended up being the third base coach for a number of years.
Yeah,
I had Sam in Double-A, and then Mike Covich I had in the Carolina League and again at Triple-A. But those two guys were the primary managers that I played for in the minor league. But we had a pitching coach that really never got the credit he deserves for helping develop Doc Gooden and all the pitchers, really. And it was a gentleman named John Cumberland. He was an old left-handed, crusty veteran type guy, just no nonsense, speak it to you just as it is, and no holding back. And John taught me a lot about calling the game, but he helped the pitching staff at the lower levels, especially at the high A level, for many years. He was a key figure in the development of all those young pitchers. And to be honest with you, I don't know that John's ever got the credit that he is due. And what a great guy and a great team guy, and a guy that knew a lot about pitching and knew how to get the best out of his guys. And I give him a lot of credit for helping me with really learning how to call the game.
Well, I'm glad you brought up his name, because I'll be honest with you, and I'm a big baseball fan, not necessarily a big Met fan, but I followed those teams because the Yankees were no good then, obviously. But I don't remember the name John Cumberland. I remember Mel Stottlemyre was one of my favorites, being the pitching coach in the major leagues, but don't remember John Cumberland.
Mel, his legacy speaks for itself. I don't slight him at all. He was an amazing major league pitching coach and a wonderful gentleman, and just as special a man as you've heard, read, and seen. Mel Stottlemyre was the epitome of class and such an amazing teacher and coach and friend. I mean, he really took to heart each and every one of his pitchers. He helped me a lot as well, but I was mainly referring to the minor league level.
Yeah, no, I get it. Yeah.
Stottlemyre is one of the best, if not the best, all-time pitching coaches that I've ever been associated with.
I'm glad you brought up John Cumberland, though, because that's one of the reasons I like doing these interviews, is we find out about these guys that we don't normally hear about, right?
Right.
And I learned something, and the audience learned something, and it's somebody who's really important to, if you're a Met fan, your team's history, and you may not even know it. So,
yeah.
So that's good stuff. Before we head to the major leagues, as you're in the minor leagues, and obviously you play with a lot of great players in the minor leagues, is there anybody that stands out as you thought they were going to be a really good player and it just didn't click for them later on? Tough question, I know.
Not necessarily. I mean, our organization was stockpiled with talent.
Yeah.
And the guys that stood out ended up making it to the big leagues. I can't really recall anyone that did not live up to expectations, if you will. But it was just so much talent in that room and on that complex, that Payson complex in St. Petersburg, Florida. I would like to see a comparison of other organizations from that era and how many guys actually made it to the big leagues and had big league productive careers. Because obviously, the guys that went on to play with the Mets, but there were so many young players that came through that were traded or ended up in other organizations that made an impact as well. And maybe there's a way to document that or to tabulate how many guys did make it to the big league from that, say, 1982 to 1980 to 1985 draft.
Oh, I'm sure there's a bunch, because obviously not just the homegrown talent. You guys obviously brought in a lot of really good players. One that obviously comes to mind in chatting with you is the great Gary Carter. I mean, you get to the major leagues, you were used to playing every day in the minor leagues. What was it like number one, to play behind one of the greatest catchers of all time, probably, and then adjust to not playing.
The adjustment to not playing was very difficult. Matter of fact, I made the club in '86, jumping from AA to the big leagues. And the first 6 weeks of the season, I got 2 starts and was productive. We won both the games that I started. I had an RBI in each game, but unfortunately, sitting in the bullpen and seeing Rick Aguilera called on the pinch hit instead of me because Davey never wanted to use his backup catcher. It was tough, and maybe I didn't handle it well. I don't know, but after about 6 weeks, mid to late May, I was optioned back to AAA to get some at bats, to get some playing time, and I went down and did what I was asked to do, and in place of me, they brought up Ed Hearn. In the 6 weeks or so that Ed was there, he got a lot more opportunities, and he took advantage of them. He hit a home run, caught well, played well, did some good things, and unfortunately, he, as far as I'm concerned, he took over the backup job, but certainly he earned it. He played well. I got called back up in June, mid-June, latter part of June, when Hojo got hurt and was primarily a pinch hitter, right-handed pinch hitter, and third catcher. So I got a couple of pinch hit opportunities, but never did get to catch during that 3-week stay that I came back for. And then optioned back to Tidewater, where I played for about a month, and unfortunately my season ended August 3rd when I got hit by a pitch and broke my right forearm. And 2 days later, Gary got hurt, and he missed about 3 weeks, and Ed and John Gibbons did a great job, and unfortunately my season was over. But Gary Carter was a terrific player. We all know that, but more inside, from a personal perspective, he was a Christian family man, a guy that really enjoyed his life, enjoyed playing the game, was very passionate about it, and loved to play. He didn't like to sit out, and that wasn't good for me,
right?
Because I wanted to play. But Gary at the time was one of the highest paid players on a long-term contract, and a guy that earned the right to play, every day or play when he wanted to play. And he didn't like coming out of the lineup, but I got my shot. Had some bright moments, and certainly was thrilled to be a part of the Mets team during the '80s for sure.
Yeah, and you were a bigger part. Still, again, playing behind Gary Carter, you're not going to get a lot of playing time, unfortunately for you. You played on a lot of really good teams, but only that '86 team won the World Series. What do you think held the? I mean, you ran into a hot Dodger team in '88, obviously, but was there other factors that really kept the team from reaching its full potential and winning more than one World Series?
Well, that's an interesting question, Keith, that I get a lot, and I'm sure my teammates get a lot. And there are factors that came into play, but as you mentioned, '88, I'm not a coulda, woulda, shoulda guy, but you know the story there and how close we were.
Yeah.
But in essence, back then it was 2 division winners going to the postseason. There were no wild cards. We finished a very, very close second all the other years that we did not win this division and make the playoffs. But obviously people point to the off the field issues and the wild guys that we were back then, to be quite honest. It was a time in the '80s in New York, and the Mets organization and the New York Mets, the Major League Ball Club, was the toast of the town. As you mentioned earlier, the Yankees weren't very good during that time, and the Mets had the back page and the front page, and many more pages in between from the tabloids. And unfortunately, some of the stories on the front page didn't help the story on the back page, as some of our guys got in trouble and did things that, looking back, we wish we didn't, and I'm certainly one of those. But thankfully, I was never in the headlines for any of that. But it was a wild time. The nightlife and the partying and the trappings that were available to all of us. Many of us got sucked into it, and it probably, did have an effect. But that's part of it. But really, if you finish second in New York, you might as well be in last. So those second place finishes and not making the postseason did not look good on us. But various factors also came into play. 87, we had several of our top pitchers out for different periods of time. 89, we got off to a rough start. Gary and Keith went down, which certainly didn't help, but it opened the door for Dave Maggott and myself to get playing time, and then I got hurt. And so it was a great time to be a New York Met. Did we underachieve? Maybe in some ways, but had there been wild cards then, as there have been for many, many years now, we would have been in the postseason. And with our pitching staff, with Doc and Ronnie and Sid and then Dave Cohn and Bob Ojeda, I would have took a matchup, a 5-game series or a 7-game series with anybody and bet on us. But unfortunately, that didn't happen. There was no wild card, and finishing second in the division, no matter how close, didn't matter. And winning 100 games one year and not making the postseason certainly was crazy. And it was a great run for the New York Mets, and I'm proud to have been a part of it during that era.
Yeah, as you should be. Before I go on to my next question, it's a good question to follow up on what you were just talking about. Which pitcher did you like catching? I think he means catching for the most.
Right. Probably David Cohn. Over the years, I probably got matched up with David more than any other pitcher. My first big league game, I caught Dwight Gooden, obviously a premier pitcher and the leader of our staff and the ace of our staff and a dear friend to this day, and as is David. But David Cohn had a wide variety, arsenal of pitches that he could drop down and throw sidearm as well. But he had electric stuff and was very aggressive, very competitive, and he became my best friend on the team right away. When we got him in the trade, his locker ended up being right next to mine, and from the very first moment we were teammates, we became very good friends. So he was probably the guy I enjoyed catching the most. But Sid Fernandez was great to coach, great to catch. He relied on me as a catcher more so than any other pitcher. Sid was a little naive and didn't know really what he had. But he was very talented and trusted me, as did all the pitchers. But, I enjoyed catching all of them. Bob Ojeda had an amazing changeup and a great competitor. Darling had a variety of pitches. He was probably the toughest to catch just because Ronnie, he liked to be known as the smartest guy in the room, and he wanted to prove that. He wanted to call his own game, and so at times it was hard to get on the same page with Ronnie. But
he still sounds like that today.
I'm not here to badmouth Ronnie in any way, but that's who he is and that's who he was. And he's very good at what he does as a pitcher and a broadcaster, and he's very intelligent. There's no question. But it's incumbent upon the catcher to earn the respect of the pitching staff and have them trust in him. But today, now they call pitches. It's a different world, a different game.
For sure.
Being the catcher, your first priority is to make each and every pitcher on your staff successful and get the best out of them and know what buttons to push. Some guys you got to kick in the rear. Some guys you got to hug and love on. Some guys you got to tell them exactly what they need to hear and do it forcefully. And some guys you got to kind of, take the high road and speak to them in a different language.
It's funny. It's interesting and a bit ironic, I guess, that you mentioned David Cohn being your favorite, because your main competition for that backup job being Ed Hearn, you mentioned earlier, his main contribution to the Mets is probably David Cohn, because he got traded for him.
Well, I would have gladly gotten traded and gotten a chance to be the everyday catcher, but that didn't happen. So Ed and I are good friends, and I certainly respect what Ed did as a New York Met in 1986. Am I disappointed that I wasn't there the whole year? Yeah, I was, and it still stings a little bit even today. But Ed earned it. He did the job when he got the opportunity, and he got a chance to be the everyday catcher in Kansas City via that trade. And unfortunately, he had some arm injuries and other injuries that prevented him from really, doing what he believed he could do, or doing what the Royals thought he would do, and making the trade for him. But, there were rumors that I might be traded, but I'm thankful I stayed in New York. But had I been traded, that would have been an opportunity to catch every day, and who knows what might have happened. But, we can't go there.
Right.
I trust in the Lord and what he's done and his plan for my life. And certainly I made mistakes along the way, but I'll cherish my time at the New York Mets.
Excellent. Well, before I leave the Mets real quick, we didn't touch on Davey Johnson. We touched on the fact that it was hard to adjust to not playing every day. What was it like playing for Davey? Because here's a guy who won every place he went, but doesn't seem to get his due, in my mind. Can you offer any insight there?
I agree with that, Keith. Davey Johnson was obviously an amazing baseball player, an amazing baseball mind. He was a good man. At times, he wasn't as communicative as you might like him to be. But he saw me my very first year, right after the draft. Davey was a roving hitting instructor, and just by coincidence, which I don't believe in, but just by the plan that God had, he saw me right away. The first weekend in Greensboro, North Carolina, and I had a really good weekend, and he was there to see it. And I think that is what initially drew him to me and to liking my potential. And he managed in the minor leagues after that, but always was one level ahead of me. When he was at Double-A Jackson, I was in A-ball, and when he was at Triple-A Tidewater, I was in High A. And then the next year he got the big league job, and but he was a good manager. He took a lot of criticism for maybe his lack of rules or his lack of oversight off the field, but that's not his job.
Right.
His three primary things that he expressed every spring is be on time, don't embarrass the organization, and don't embarrass yourself or your family. And, he treated us as grown men, and obviously many of us went astray at times and did things that maybe we regret, or, maybe could have got a little more rest on the road, or stayed out of the nightlife scene, or, whatever the case may be. But Davey respected the players. He gave us the freedom to express ourselves on the field, and gave us the freedom to be men. And, unfortunately, many of us made poor choices from time to time, but overall, Davey did not get the respect or the platitudes that he deserved. He was an outstanding manager, ahead of his time, actually.
Yeah.
The first to really use some of the data that you can acquire on the computer. Now, don't get me on that soapbox.
No, we don't want to go there. Just will be here all day.
But the way he used matchups and platoon certain guys and pitching matchups, and the way he ran the ball club and organize his lineup. I put Davey against any manager, and Whitey Herzog was our chief rival during those years, and Whitey got a lot more favorable press than Davey did. But I don't put Whitey above Davey. I think they were two on par, pretty equal managers with a different style. The Cardinals were running, defense, speed, and pitching, whereas we were more of a pitching first and power, and an aggressive lineup that would do things, play the game hard and play the game with a chip on our shoulder. And being in New York, that's what you have to do. You have to be tough. You have to be resilient, and you have to be confident. Any chink in the armor in New York will get exposed. And as you've known and seen over the years, there are a lot of guys that can't play there.
Right.
And it's been proven. New York's a tough place, but there's no greater place when you're succeeding, your team's winning, and you're being successful and doing your job. The New York Mets fans are awesome, and they've treated me with great respect, as they have all of our teammates.
I'm sure they remember you very fondly, as they do all those guys. So when your time comes to an end with the Mets, you spent a time in a lot of organizations, right? I know you went to the Dodgers and the Angels right away, didn't play a whole lot. But my question will be twofold. You hung around for a long time playing in the minor leagues again after being pretty much a full-time major leaguer for 3-4 years.
Right.
What kept you coming around, Barry, playing, and I'm sure it was your dream, but I want to hear it in your words. And also, did that time in the minor leagues kind of fuel your passion for what came later as far as your minor league affiliations?
It did. I could never argue with God's plan for my life. While there were times where I wondered why and what this was about, and some of the things were certainly self-inflicted, and some were just part of the numbers game that baseball and professional sports is. I mean,
life in general.
I was playing the game first and foremost. I was passionate about playing, and then after my New York Mets tenure came to a very disappointing and frustrating and even depressing time for me. I got hurt and then got shipped out and then got kind of swept under the rug, and time moves on. One guy goes down, next guy steps up. And that's the first time I was really rejected, and first time that I was really hurt. Didn't know what my future held. It was certainly a difficult time, but I, as you mentioned, joined the Dodgers late in 1991 after being released by the Mets, and a new opportunity came up, and I was excited and thankful for the opportunity. And next thing you know, 2 weeks before spring training the next year, Gary Carter signed with the Dodgers, and there was my roadblock back in front of me. But now we were on somewhat level ground.
Right.
But still, Gary Carter, the future Hall of Fame catcher, but he was on a minor league contract for a minimal salary compared to what he had made the previous 8 years. And we battled in spring training, and we both made the club to start the season. But unfortunately, I became the odd man out when Oral Hershiser came back. They wanted to carry an extra pitcher instead of an extra catcher, and thus began my journey around the AAA level with the Angels, and then the Astros, and the Cardinals, and the Reds. And in 1994 with the Reds, I had a tremendous season on a AAA team that won the American Association. I was the leader on that team. We had probably 8 or 9 guys that had some significant big league experience on that team. And that was as fun a season I've ever had in baseball. And that earned me an opportunity to finish my career in the big leagues the next year with the White Sox. So I wanted to get back to the big leagues, much like when I was drafted late after an injury-plagued junior season in college. I wanted to go back and get it right. Well, my passion and my desire go through the AAA fires, those 3 years was all with the intent of getting back to the big leagues. And by the grace of God, that happened. And I was able to finish my career as a big league ball player and move on to the next phase of life, having accomplished that.
Well, you certainly, as I said, I mean, even if the major league level wasn't, your best play, you certainly accomplished a lot in baseball at the minor league level and contributing to teams that were winners, obviously, in the major league level. When you retire, you actually go into managing for a few years. What soured you on that?
Well, various things, but the primary reason I got out was my one and only child, my daughter Danielle, was born in spring training of the second year that I was with the Reds, and being away from my wife at the time and my daughter certainly wasn't the way that I envisioned being a father. Guys have done it forever. Baseball and families and children and the dads being away is part of the game, but I really wanted to be an everyday dad, and that was more than anything else. But I managed for 3 seasons. The first year was an independent baseball just south of Nashville, where I was living for several years, and that went well. And the Reds hired me to manage in their organization, where I did for 2 years. And I really enjoyed the managing part, but the being alone on the road, having done that as a player and loved every minute of it wasn't a lot of fun for me as a grown man, as a father who was missing his family and missing those special moments. That more than anything got me out of managing. But I never gave up my dream to bring minor league baseball to my hometown. And I worked for 3 years for the Nashville Sounds, the AAA team I had played for part of my final season as a broadcaster and someone that was involved in trying to help Nashville get a new ballpark, which was sorely needed. And lo and behold, I moved home in 2002 with the goal of caring for my elderly parents and also to bring minor league baseball to Biloxi. And through a lot of trials and tribulations and a lot of blood, sweat, and tears and a lot of ups and downs, we finally were able to get minor league baseball in Biloxi and a stadium built right less than a mile from the house I grew up in, right on the Mississippi Gulf Coast, overlooking the Mississippi Sound. And the same year, the Nashville Sounds opened a brand new ballpark. So I kind of feel like I may have had a little bit to do with Nashville, but certainly was the key figure and instrumental figure in bringing baseball to Biloxi. And for that, I just give God the glory, and I'm so thankful.
Well, you worked on, this was a project you worked on for over 10 years, right, before it came to fruition.
Over 20 years.
20 years, okay. Yeah, I was thinking from the time you left Nashville, but...
in 1994, I planted the seed.
I gotcha.
When I was with Indianapolis that season, we had a 5-day road trip in New Orleans. And when we were in New Orleans, I commuted back and forth to Biloxi to stay in my condo on the beach where I lived in the off season. And it was then that one day before going back to New Orleans for that day's game, I went by City Hall and met with Mayor Holloway and planted that seed with him in 1994. I went to his office and said, Mayor, I really hope and believe that minor league baseball would be great for our community and for our city. And he kind of looked at me sort of in surprise and said, you want us to build a ballpark? And I said, yes, sir. And at the time, it wasn't possible, but I believed in it when a lot of people didn't believe in my idea. And I kept stirring the pot every year when I'd come home for the winter or for the holidays. And little by little, people started buying in. People started seeing the Mississippi Braves came to Jackson metro area, our state capital area, and they were successful. And my dream just would never let go of it. And thankfully, a lot of people played a part in it, but ultimately we got it done.
Yeah, and over those years, I mean, there was a lot of good things and hard things, roadblocks that you ran into. Obviously, a huge roadblock had to be in 2005 when Katrina hit. I know that it affected not only your dream of baseball in Biloxi, but also you on a personal level.
It really did, Keith. I mean, I personally battled addiction to alcohol for many years after my playing days were over. It was a lifestyle that I got caught up in. It was fun at the time. It was exciting. It was kind of the part of the culture that was the New York Mets during that time, and Major League Sports and entertainment in general. The mid and late '80s was a wild time, but I got caught up in it, and it became sort of a habit, and ultimately became an addiction. And I battled it for several years, but my addiction spiraled out of control after Hurricane Katrina. I was addicted to alcohol and to marijuana, and used other drugs over the years. But those two primarily was a part of my life for many years, and I battled it and struggled with it, and ultimately it won. And I was in a very tough place for 4 or 5 years after Hurricane Katrina. Lost a brother to suicide, lost my parents one after the other, and then eventually lost a marriage and custody of my beautiful daughter. And it was a spiraling, out of control time in my life. But ultimately, a woman came into my life, who's my wife today, Julie. She really came in at a great time, and God gave me the blessing of her, and she helped me help myself by getting me into a Christian addiction recovery program in 2011. And by the grace of God, I accepted Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior on January 19, 2012, and I've been alcohol and drug free ever since. And I just give God the glory, and I'm so thankful to be free, and so many blessings have come since then. I've been a blessed man all my life. God has been with me through it all. But there was a time where I put him on the back burner, and it became about me and my ego. And once that happens, you're destined for trouble. And certainly, I didn't see it at the time, but it happened, and I've battled it, dealt with it, and suffered from it for many years. But that was then, and this is now. I'm a new creature in Christ, and I'm just thankful for all of the blessings that God has bestowed upon me and my family.
Well, I'm very happy to hear that, and I'm very happy that you shared the story, because it comes up now and again when I'm talking with guys on the show, and I think it's an important message for people to hear, because there's somebody else in your situation out there that might see that and say, I can still make something of this life, right?
Absolutely, Keith. And baseball has been my passion and who I was for a long, long time. But now I'm thankful for my baseball life and everything that has been good about me being a baseball player and being a passionate baseball man. But baseball is a platform now for me to share the gospel of Jesus Christ, and to encourage others and to inspire others that there is a way out of addiction, and it's through Jesus. And Darryl Strawberry is one of my best friends in the game, and always has been, even when we were on the other side of the fence, on the Devil's team, if you will. Darryl is doing amazing work for the kingdom of God, and preaching and sharing his testimony all over the country. And certainly, I think people are aware of that and have seen that and heard that about Darryl, and very proud and thankful for that. But in the 25th anniversary of our '86 team, Darryl was in the early days of his freedom and his freedom from addiction. And at that 25th reunion in New York, I saw a different Darryl. I saw a glow around him. I saw a peace in him that maybe was there when Gary Carter. People question Gary why he smiled all the time and how he could be so, happy. Well, Gary had that peace. He had that relationship with the Lord that allowed him, no matter what, to smile and to share his love. And he knew all the craziness that was going on our team to some degree, but
sure,
he never judged us. He never criticized us. He didn't partake in it. He probably prayed for us and wished differently, but I saw that in Darryl at our 25th reunion, and it wasn't but about 3 months later that I became sick and tired of that spinning wheel that I was on and got help. And so Darryl has been a friend always, and even more so now that we're brothers in Christ.
That's awesome. Before we run out of time here, Barry, I want to spend some more time on the Biloxi Shuckers, obviously, because your dream did come to fruition in 2015.
It did.
And the team's been very successful over those years, struggling a little bit right now, I noticed, but very successful over the years.
The Biloxi Shuckers started play in 2015. The first 54 games of that season was on the road because there were some delays in construction of the ballpark. But
beautiful little stadium, by the way.
It is a beautiful stadium. Thank you for saying. But the Milwaukee Brewers is our affiliate, and they have provided some outstanding talent, especially then from the pitching side of things. We had Brandon Woodruff, we had Corbin Burns, we had Freddie Peralta, we've had Josh Hader. I mean, all the guys that have been shining big time up in the big leagues for the Brewers came through here and were very successful here. But we've in 5 seasons we've been in the championship series twice. Unfortunately, lost in Game 5 of both of those series, but it's been well received. We've got a great core group of fans that really love the Shuckers and support the organization. And we've got a beautiful ballpark, and it's just a blessing for me to get up every day. And I'm at the home games every game, and just welcoming fans, enjoying seeing the smiles on their faces. Occasionally I get some thanks and gratitude and appreciation for my effort, but that's not why I do it. I wanted it for my hometown. I wanted it to be a lasting legacy for my family and for my family name, so that generations from now and long after I'm gone, people will remember Barry Lyons and his love of baseball and his passion for my hometown of Biloxi, Mississippi.
Well, it seems like you put a lot into it for sure, as we've talked about. But your official, I mean, I know I read in 2015 you were named the official ambassador of the Shuckers. Is that still your official title, or?
It is, and it's a long story for another day. But unfortunately, I was not afforded an ownership stake in the ball club that was promised. That,
oh, that's a shame.
Business, things happen, and I'm not going to go into any of those details. But unfortunately, I did not get that ownership piece that I was anticipating. But I didn't do it for a financial gain. I did it for my community because I love minor league baseball and I love my hometown community, and I wanted them to see what I was blessed to be a part of for so many years. And that's more than anything else why I did what I did, and why I enjoy going to the ballpark every night and being a part of that baseball game day experience that is so much fun for so many people. And that gives me great joy. And I just give God the glory, and am thankful for that. But I am the ambassador. I do a pregame live show on the video board before the game. Before COVID, I would do it on the field. Now we're up in the press box.
Yeah.
but things are opening up. Our fans are really. We've had one homestand so far this year, and we had great crowds. The enthusiasm and excitement about being back out at the ballpark is very evident on everybody that's come through our gates. And we start another homestand on Tuesday night. So I'm excited about this team. You mentioned they are struggling a little bit. Minor league baseball as a whole, somewhat in a flux after missing last year. And then, a short spring training and really these guys, are trying to catch up a little bit. And I feel confident. Our manager, Mike Guerrero, has been here 4 out of the 5 seasons thus far. He's a great guy and an outstanding manager. He's got a great track record. And I know he'll get these guys on track and they'll be very successful as they have been each and every year they've been here so far.
Well, I like to see success on the minor league level, because it's so important to feeding the majors, obviously. And the fact that the major leagues are doing what they're doing with contracting some of these teams, I think is just an awful plan. Happened here locally. We had an affiliate with the Astros, not 10 minutes from my house. Single A. They are going independent this year. But they've got a beautiful ballpark they built, not on the level of what the Shuckers have, but similar. And it's a great experience at the ballpark for a nice price. And it's a shame some of these teams are going away.
That's very disappointing. I hate that for your community and for every community that lost minor league baseball. I don't agree with everything Major League Baseball is doing by any means. And, I'm not going to go out and bash them, and it is what it is. But the game is changing and not for the better, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And, there's so many things that I could rant about, but I'm not going to do it on your show.
No, that's fine. We did have a question, and if we could go into a whole show about that. I do it almost every week on my other shows, so right. I get it.
Well, I understand and I sympathize with you and all the people in your community that love going out to the ballpark and watching those young players enjoy playing the game and that game day experience, as you mentioned. There's nothing like it. Minor league baseball is as wholesome a good time for a family as I can imagine for anyone. And that's what we needed down here more than anything else, was wholesome family entertainment. And, the casino industry is huge here, and it basically saved our economy many, many years ago when it first came in, and it's been a big bonus for us. And, there are those people that enjoy that. More, I tip my hat to you, but I'm about family entertainment. I'm about kids enjoying themselves, and no way, in my mind, that's better to enjoy yourself than being at the ballpark and watching great baseball and enjoying the atmosphere and the camaraderie.
I agree.
And the fellowship that you can find at a minor league baseball game.
Yeah, the experience at the minor league park sometimes is so much better than the major league parks. It's unbelievable. It really is.
It is, but everyone's goal is to be a big leaguer.
Oh, sure.
Including all the staffers at the minor league level and all the people that work so hard. Ultimately, all of our goal is to make it to the big leagues, and I'm blessed that I was able to do that and live that. And I just am so thankful for that. But my time as a New York Met, I will cherish forever the friendships I've made, the memories that I have. I wouldn't trade it for anything.
That's awesome. Well, and we're blessed to have you with us today, Barry. I'm glad you came on. We had a great conversation. Sorry for little technical difficulties. I'll have to look into what our issues were. But as I wrap it up, if you want to stick around for a second, I'd love to chat with you just for a quick second when we get done. If you got to run, I certainly understand.
No, I'd love to, Keith. Thank you.
Excellent. I appreciate you having you here with me today, and wish the Shuckers some better luck as we go through the season here. I'm sure that'll happen.
Well, we're excited for baseball and excited for them to come back home Tuesday. And it's an honor and a pleasure for me to be out at the ballpark. Unfortunately, we don't have the interaction with the players that I'm used to. We're not, at this point in time, not allowed to go to the dugout or to really, engage the players, which I love doing. But
it'll come.
That day will come. And but the main thing is the fans are able to come out to enjoy the freedom and the fresh air of being out at the ballpark and watching great baseball and enjoying the fellowship that happens within the ballpark. There's nothing better.
Excellent. Well, I thank you again, and I'll chat with you in just a second. Thank you. My guest today, Barry Lyons, former Met, now a big part of the Biloxi Shuckers. Thanks, Barry. We'll talk to you in a bit.
Thank you, Keith.
So Barry Lyons, what a great conversation with Barry. I enjoyed it immensely. Sorry for that feedback, but and sorry for the technical problems, but we've had worse ones. I wanted to let you. I still hear you. Hang on, hang on. Now I can't mute you, Barry. Hang on 1 second. So my guest next week will be Andre Lacroix, former NHL hockey player with the Flyers, played a lot in WHA, and we're going to talk about hockey yesterday, hockey today, and Andre was a really, really good player, and we're going to have our first hockey interview, and I'm looking forward to it. You guys have a great Sunday. I'll see you in about 10 minutes on the Mac and Jack show, and I'll see you Sunday with our live stream of consciousness. Keith Engel, TGI Sports Talk, right here on Northeast Streaming Sports and Zodiac TV. See you later. Have a great weekend.